Hi guys. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Hi Monica. Is the sound okay, guys? Perfect. And does it sound like I'm close enough to the microphone? Because if not, I can take it off and hold it. Perfect. How is everyone? Lovely to see you guys. Hi Monica. Hi Peterbrook. And thank you for joining. While we wait for everybody else to join, please feel free to grab a cup of tea or a drink if you haven't got one, and a notebook if you'd like to, but it's not necessary. We've got four people here. Hi Anna, I'm not sure if I've met you before, but your icon looks familiar. I think we're just waiting for a few people to come in. How is everybody? Let me know how your days have been or any kind of recent highlights while we wait for more people to join. We've got 8 meditators here, but I can only see 3 icons at the bottom, so feel free to say hi in the chat if you haven't already. Hi Iga, lovely to see you. Hi Z. Anna, it's my first time here as well. This is literally my first session, so welcome and thank you for joining. Oh, well done, Monica. I hope your workout was good. It's so nice to kind of be on the other side, obviously. I know I've seen many of you like me at other people's lives, and I'm going to kind of share a little bit shortly around what brought me here, to kind of the teacher side of things, and also a little bit of context on why community and connection has been sort of something that's really important to me, and also I think something the world kind of needs now more than ever. I'm a little bit nervous, obviously, so thank you for your patience in advance. So a little bit of I'll kind of get started, and then if anybody wants to catch anybody new up in the chat, feel free to. Um, I've been a kind of member of Insight Timer for many years, and I think for me, Insight Timer found me at a time where I just ended a relationship. I was kind of suddenly living alone, and I found that the house was a lot more quiet than it had been. And, particularly it was kind of winter time. It was while we were still going through some of the kind of post COVID weirdness. And I realized that Insight Timer had live sessions around then. And it was honestly the loveliest thing to be able to just turn on Insight Timer and have kind of that sense of community and connection, and feel part of something and not feel alone just after suddenly living alone. And it really helped me kind of a lot. And I think I personally think Insight Timer is so undervalued, and if you haven't subscribed to kind of the premium, it's a really great way to support the platform. And there's obviously a lot more that you can get access to, as well as all of the great free stuff we get. And obviously, share Insight Timer with everybody you can, anybody you think it would help. I think when I talk to people about it and tell them about it, everybody's so amazed that something like this exists. And I know all the teachers on here say similar things. But for me, Insight Timer provided a way to connect with people when I was on my own, and I used to listen to it at times where I felt particularly kind of where things were quiet. So, for example, if I was doing the washing up or if I was getting ready for bed, things like that. And it kind of helped me to have a lot of learning and growth through some of the topics that people were talking about, but also it kind of helped to fill that silence, something which I've definitely gotten more comfortable with over time and gotten used to again, because I had lived alone for a long time before that. And also, if there's any issues with my mic or sound or video or anything, please let me know in the chat. So essentially, the community and the kind of sense of connection that people have on here, and the way I felt super welcomed through people on the chat, and the same way you guys all say hi to each other when you recognize each other, is such a lovely, wonderful thing. And there were certain teachers that I think, like Catherine Ramati was one of them, where she used to always welcome me, and I felt so kind of welcomed and wanted, and it just felt like such a nourishing, loving space. And I want to be able to kind of create that and hold that space for other people that need it as well. Thanks, Monica. Speaking of Catherine, and if anyone hasn't checked out Catherine Ramati, she is incredible. There are many great teachers. Blossom Violet as well. If you love sort of relaxing piano music and just the sweetest, kindest vibes, I really recommend checking her out. Also, Rob Gregerson does amazing live music, and there's so many teachers. And I think next time I'll make a list of some of my favorites and paste them into the chat so that you guys can go follow all of the people that I kind of love and follow. And I recognize quite a lot of you on from the icons below. So thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so essentially, I I've always been a big kind of fan and advocate of community and connection. And if some of you have listened to my tracks, I talk about how during COVID, I kind of got to know more of my neighbours and really built a community where I live. And now in the area I live in, I can't walk sort of 2-3 minutes without running into people that I know. And just, exchanging a hello or a smile makes such a big difference to, whatever was going on in my head or whatever I'm thinking about or feeling. Having that moment of connection and kind of interaction, even if it's brief, does kind of hit reset sometimes or makes a bad or neutral day a bit better. So that's kind of one thing that I feel is really helped me a lot. And I think, that's how things used to be back in the day. People would know their neighbours. And not saying that, that's the case everywhere. And I think a lot of people do know their neighbours. But I think particularly I live in London, and more and more people, friends of friends, acquaintances, new people I meet, I've heard people say things like, they're struggling to maintain friendships, or they've lost touch with people, or they've moved somewhere new, they're struggling to kind of make new friends or find their tribe, so to speak. And hi, Melanie. Lovely to have you here. Melanie's also a great teacher on Insight Timer, and I love food. So anybody that's into kind of cooking and sort of mindfulness, check her out. Monica, you need to come and visit, obviously. Um, but one of the things about London is it's a beautiful place. It's really busy, really cosmopolitan. There's lots of people, but there's also a massive kind of undercurrent of loneliness. Partly because people are busy, and on public transport, a lot of people don't kind of make eye contact or say hi or talk to each other, and that's kind of something that's missing around the world. And one thing that I used to do is if I was flying, I would always like speak to the people next to me, and I'd end up making so many what I called plane friends, to the point where sometimes I even went and visited them in other countries they lived in. And so what I'm trying to do through Insight Timer is basically share some of my learnings and like insights and lessons around creating connection and community around you. And obviously there's going to be different degrees that people will kind of connect with or feel comfortable doing those things. But I think overall, I'm hoping that the takeaway is that we all feel a little bit more connected and feel more of a sense of possibility about being part of something bigger than us, whether that's online on here or in the world around you, or just whatever feels right for you. But I think there's a lot of benefits about community that I'll kind of come on to in later sessions. But there's things like, in communities that are quite connected where people know each other, there's less crime, there's increased well-being, longevity, and things like that. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it, and the downside's really quite small, other than having to potentially put yourself out there or get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I wanted to start with a quote around community, which I'd found earlier today. And I think I'd like to kind of share a quote at the beginning of each session. Hopefully, it depends if I run out. So if anyone comes across anything they'd like me to share going forward, feel free to message me. But this one is: one of the marvelous things about community is that it enables us to welcome and help people in a way we couldn't as individuals. When we pool our strength and share the work and responsibility, we can welcome many people, even those in deep distress, and perhaps help them find self-confidence and inner healing. So I really loved that, and it resonated with me, because one of the things that we have where I live is I myself and another neighbour set up WhatsApp groups, and it's been such a great thing where people need help or kind of have need a favor and things like that. And I've got so many stories kind of of friendships and connections I've made through doing that, which a lot of them are unexpected. But a lot of my kind of best friends now live in my development, which is great. It's like, in university halls or dorms, as the Americans would say. It's like that, but for grown-ups. You can literally go to your friend's house in your pajamas because they live in the same building or the building next door, and you can walk through the car park. Um, and yes, I think it's kind of something that's really like precious to me. And I've also had a lot of feedback in terms of friends and people that I like, sort of friends and family who come and visit. They all comment on how amazing it is and the sense of community in the area and here. And I've also more recently been involved in kind of some local arts and culture community stuff. So I'm on a panel for this like arts festival that happens every couple of years here, and they basically want people who live in various kind of local areas to have input on how we can reach people in the community, like, for example, older people or people from kind of different backgrounds that wouldn't think that arts and culture is for them, and how we get them involved and get them interested in coming to things that are free and that they could potentially enjoy and benefit from. But more, I guess, the heart of what I'm kind of doing here, or what I want to do, and my kind of intention is to help anybody. Hi, Monica. Sorry, hi, Catherine. I just read your message and started reading it out loud, guys. Catherine's one of the first teachers that I came across on here on lives, and I was talking about you earlier, Catherine, and I'm telling everybody to follow you and listen to your sessions. And also anybody else, if you're a teacher on here, please like share your profile, your links kind of in the chat. And everybody, please do kind of follow and support all the teachers on here. And on that note, if you'd like to support me, I would appreciate any donations. I've just kind of gone through the redundancy process at work, which I'll get on to in a moment, which is what kind of led me here also. And I think it was divine timing, but I'll share that story in a second. So I guess one of the things I've realized just throughout my life is I've done a lot of volunteering in hospitals in the past when I was younger, and also with older people in the kind of local community who they're like lucid and mobile, but they're isolated. And London's changed a lot from when they were younger, and they don't recognize it anymore. They kind of don't know what are all these new places and these new experiences that are opening up. And it's really interesting to see how much, for example, somebody that's in hospital for a long time and they don't have much family, or their family don't live nearby, how much it means to them having people visit them like at least once or twice a week, and just having a chat with them. Similarly, when I was kind of volunteering with these older people, we did kind of quite fun things. Like one of the days out we did was to a gin distillery, and essentially you realize that it doesn't matter what your age is, and people are people. And I've always felt that, and I've always had friends of all ages since I was a lot younger. And it's so you see the joy and the delight they have at being included. And I've heard stories from other people where they see kind of an older person who's a bit lonely in the supermarket, who starts a conversation, and just kind of giving people the time of day, I think, is really important where you can and where you have capacity and feel comfortable doing so. And ultimately, one of the things that I've noticed, a recurrent theme, is that wherever we are, whatever we're doing, whatever our lives look like, everybody has the potential or the capacity or the risk of experiencing isolation or loneliness at one time or another. And I'm sure most of us here have had those feelings in one way or another at different points in time. And I think kind of one of the things that I try and do is being aware of where other people might be feeling that. So anytime I'm in like a group setting, if I see someone kind of on their own, I try to include them, and little things like that. And it depends, because you might also be the person that's on your own wanting or hoping for other people to include you. So it's worth kind of thinking about, whichever side you're on, what you can do to kind of create community and connection for yourself and for others. So that's kind of my intention with this. Is I know that there's a lot of loneliness and isolation in the world kind of now more than ever, because we have the illusion of thanks, Igor, for being my welcoming committee. Really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful for all of you being here. This is my first live, for those of you who don't know and who don't know me. I've been kind of in the chats of a lot of other live streams over the years. But yeah, it's so nice to 52 meditators here. Wow. Thank you guys. Welcome. I'm Priyanka. I'm talking about creating kind of community and connection. Um, and if anybody, I will have a section for kind of questions towards the end, and that can be questions about me, about kind of specific situations that you have in your life, or kind of, just generally any sort of fears you have or anything that you feel is like holding you back from potentially being more community or connection oriented. So yeah, my intention is just to help people who need it, to kind of alleviate loneliness and isolation, but also for those of us that are on the other side, like, the Monicas and Catherines, and Egos of this world and everybody else that's on here who generally, says hello and is friendly, around how we can create a better world together, how we can bring more people into a space where they feel seen and heard and connected, and how we can create community for ourselves and those around us. Because I think overall, kind of, we can build a better world that way. I'm also really working on trying not to say kind of and like as much as I do. So hopefully that will improve over the more kind of live sessions I do. And I guess one of the things that I wanted to kind of just briefly cover is the types of topics I'm going to be talking about going forward. So I think I want to do a couple of different streams of sessions. I'd like to do kind of ones around community and authentic, meaningful connection with practical tips and exercises and little reminders of how we can do that. Thank you, Monica. And I also wanted to do other sessions where I have 3 very cute guinea pigs. So I wanted to do kind of a guinea pigs and good vibes kind of just hangout session once in a while, where people can bring like their pets, and I can do a bit of a guinea pig show and tell. I have 3 guinea pigs: a monkey, pumpkin, and bear, and they are very cute and very funny. And yeah, so for anybody that's into kind of animals and pets, I'm gonna kind of do that going forward. And then there's probably a few other types of sessions that I'll do as well, which I'll kind of share in due course. And if anybody has any requests around particular topics or themes, feel free to message me directly, or drop me a line, or suggest it on. Oh, there's other guinea pig owners here as well. Do you know what? I will show you their space actually, if you guys would like to see. So this is their house over here. It's a little bit messy because I didn't think I'd be sharing it, but we'll do a guinea pig hangout session, and for anyone that wants to kind of bring their pets along. So yeah, and then there was a story that I wanted to share, which I heard about 2 weeks ago from this lovely woman I met, and I thought it made me think quite a lot about what it means to kind of have community and connection in this day and age, and also what little things that we might overlook. So I met this woman who essentially told me that she has no family. She's just got her mother, and once her mother passes away, then she won't have anybody remaining to kind of call like any bloodlines. And she did a kind of DNA test, and it flagged a couple of relatives, distant relatives around the world. And she got in touch with one of them, reached out to her, and then she messaged that person back saying she'd really like to meet them and stay in touch. And then that person didn't get back to her. And we had an interesting conversation, because initially she'd said to me that, maybe if the person doesn't get back to her, she might not bother. And the thing that I reflected on, and I kind of asked her, is I said, but you mentioned to me that it's obviously important to you to kind of connect with people and you'd like to know more about your family. So, maybe it is worth reaching out to this person again, because she'd mentioned this person has their own family and, presumably then would be quite busy. And I said, you've got nothing to lose by reaching out again. Presumably this person probably forgot or got busy, and, they're probably not intentionally. Oh, Elias, that's so kind of you. Thank you. This is my first ever live, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's very kind of you. And guys, I'm gonna be honest. I was really unwell earlier today, and I was really worried about this live, because you with Insight Timer, from what I've read, you need to give 24 hours notice if you're going to cancel a live. And I thought, oh no, I really want to do the live, and I don't want to kind of use up one of my strikes on being unwell. But I'm so happy I'm here, and it's really such a joy to be here with all of you. So I really appreciate you showing up and kind of taking the time and listening to me. Thank you for honestly, thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. Um, so anyway, back to the story I was telling. So I said to her, I said, "What have you got to lose ultimately if you reach out again?" And she said, actually, do you know what? Maybe you're right. And she reflected on it a little bit, and I just said, ultimately, unfortunately, now one of the challenges that I feel we have, and why people are a little bit more isolated than ever, is that people are flakier than they've ever been. Because if you don't want to shop somewhere or you don't want to do something, you can just cancel via text message. And I think sort of society, culture, social media, attention span has really shifted for most of us. I think for us that are on here on this platform, we're a little bit different. We're a little bit more kind of attuned to ourselves, mindfulness, and slowing down. So I would like to think that everybody on this platform is a bit less or is more consistent, to put it more positively, than most people. And I'm part of that, which is why I said I was going to do this live, even though I didn't feel well. I was like, I'm showing up. And I think that really matters. For me, follow through is really important, and that's because I have anxious attachment. And it's obviously there's negative things to that as well. I can need like validation and attention more than the average person would, or take things personally a lot more easily. But on the other hand, I make a lot of effort, and I have really strong follow through because people doing what they say they're going to do really matters to me. So that's one of the things that I was going to address. So basically, we were talking about how this person didn't get back to her, and so I said to her that unfortunately, people are really flaky in this day and age. And I'm sure she didn't mean to kind of ignore you, or it wasn't intended badly. Just we never know what's going on for someone else, and also, it might be. Elias, that's so kind of you. And I am going to pause and go through the comments after this just to catch up. So thank you guys. And feel free to share, and obviously if you feel you're getting value from this, I'd appreciate any donations you have, or want to contribute as well to support me on my journey as a new teacher. So yeah. So anyway, so I said to her that people are quite often flaky, and I think on the one hand we might not know what's going on in people's lives, and we can't always assume that the worst, that they didn't care, or they didn't want to message me, or they don't care, or they don't like me. On the other hand, it's quite likely, usually the simplest explanation is the likely one, where they probably forgot or got busy or opened the message. And I've done it myself, where I've had my phone open and a notification has come through, opened, and I've not even seen it. And as much as I also quite often intend to respond within a timely manner, I do sometimes take a while to get back to people, because on WhatsApp, for example, there's just too many messages, there's too many groups, and it can be hard. And that's not me meaning to kind of. And by the way, just little tip, because I just remembered, had some water. If anybody needs a reminder to hydrate, please do. Please get yourself a drink if you need to. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. And what I've found in a lot of my friendships and relationships is I quite often will have to be the one to kind of make plans or follow up, even if someone else doesn't respond. But overall, the value I get from those connections and relationships is somewhat reciprocal. And I wouldn't let people kind of, if somebody lets me down last minute too many times or cancels plans, then I would eventually set a boundary or communicate with it, about it with them. But I think otherwise there's no harm in kind of just following up and being the kind of bigger person, so to speak. It kind of depends on what the stakes are, right? Is how much, this is what I said to her. I said, it depends on how much it matters to you, what you have to gain, what you have to lose, and also the part your ego plays. So is it more important to you to kind of actually maybe reach out and see where this connection or family, whatever, takes you? And is sending another second message like a big deal to you? Does it feel comfortable? Or is it more kind of authentic for you to just leave it and actually say, okay, if this person replies, then I'll meet up with them? So I think there isn't like a right answer necessarily, but there's also, essentially, the takeaway for me is that if it doesn't like if you're not losing anything by trying again or reaching out again, and actually that connection or that person means a lot to you, or the possibility or what you could get from it matters, then it's worth seeing, like still exploring it or following up, even if you feel, because I think there's that thing slightly now where we're also in a kind of culture and a time where people are talking about like boundaries, and people are trying to maintain their like respect, self-respect and dignity, and say, oh well, if somebody doesn't message me, I don't want to chase them. And I think there is a difference between just following up politely and then also like chasing and messaging someone several times. So I think it's finding that balance, and as long as it's comfortable for you, and you're kind of reaching out or giving like freely, and it's coming from a good place, and it's not a case where you're not getting anything like back, and like, let me rephrase that, because sometimes we want to give and also like shine our light without necessarily expecting anything back, and that's obviously great as well if you have the capacity to do that. But what I mean to say is, like, if you've got relationships where it's very like one side and it doesn't make you feel good, and you feel like it's like swimming upstream, then in those cases it's also worth reflecting on maybe what your boundaries are, and how much energy you want to put into that. But hi Ren. But outside of that, it's kind of, I think a lot of us sometimes think like, oh, this person didn't message me back, therefore it's not my responsibility to follow up. Like if they wanted to, they would. And my feeling is that sometimes it is kind of worth it. And if the person matters, and you want to see them, or you want to speak to them or see them, then it's like, do it. And kind of maybe give them the benefit of the doubt if that's something that feels good to you and comfortable for you. And so, oh, that's so nice to hear, Cat Blue. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's just, reaching out to people. And that was kind of one of the exercises that I had for today, or reflections, is maybe it's worth, after this live, or even now while I'm talking, thinking about who in your life have you maybe not reached out to or followed up because they're a little bit, thank you, Elias. So because they're a little bit flaky, or they don't always reply, or and I think people you're close to, you'll generally have a feel for what their lives are like. Let's say if people have young children, or if they have like really demanding jobs. So it's worth kind of figuring out and thinking about whether actually it is personal and they genuinely just like didn't reply because they don't care, or if it's a little bit simpler than that, and actually they're busy or they forgot and you do matter. um so that's kind of the sort of takeaway from that story, is maybe have a think about whether there's anybody in your life that you've lost touch with, not through either of your faults, or it's just kind of fizzled out, but they're people that you would love to reconnect with. You've always had fun with them and had a nice time talking to them, and have a think about that, because I know life gets busy and things get in the way, but I'm sure you guys have come across people in your life that you might like to speak to or see more than you do, and it's worth thinking about that. And also thinking about like who makes you feel good when you're around them, when you're speaking to them, who you have in your life or who you've met that helps you kind of grow or feel like the person that you are at your core, or that you want to be. um I'm going to catch up on messages here, so if anybody wants to kind of add anything else to the chat or grab a drink or anything, please do. um Sandy, you mentioned you live in a community that's been affected by COVID. I'm sorry to hear that. If you're open to kind of sharing more around that, or you have any specific kind of stories or questions, please do share. We've got some guinea pig conversation. So for those of you that have joined since the guinea pig conversation, I have 3 guinea pigs called Monkey, Pumpkin, and Bear, and I will maybe do a session that will be like guinea pigs and good times, and we can just hang out and chat, and anybody can bring their kind of stories or pets. Um, and yeah, Monica, values of kind of commitment and follow through are really important to me. And an interesting kind of values exercise for anybody that hasn't done this. If you can this helped me a lot, maybe around like 6-7 years ago, and it kind of helped me with direction in my life a lot. So I made a list of what all of my values are, and then my top 5, and then I kind of picked out my top 5 values, and then I ordered them in order of priority, and I looked at every part of my life, like work, how, where I live, who I surround myself with, how I live my life, etc. And if you look at the different areas of your life through the lens of what your values are, and if they align, you'll find that whether you're happy or fulfilled, you'll realize where the gaps are, or maybe where there's stuff that doesn't quite match or fit. And let me see. I'm just catching up on all the comments. Kelly, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, and I hope you feel better soon as well. And thank you for joining my first live. And it's so nice to see like new friends and people I know as well from Insight Timer. Yeah, and Anna made a really lovely point for anyone that didn't catch this. Most of the time, it's our assumptions that stop us from connecting, and more than often, not personal at all, worth making the effort. And I think that also applies to kind of, saying hi to strangers. Not everybody's going to be receptive, but I think ultimately, as humans, we're all social beings, and more people than not are open to kind of exchanging a smile or saying hello. And I think we've just been kind of not cultured, but we've been kind of conditioned, that's the word I was looking for, to um, kind of, look down at our phones and not say hi. And if you accidentally make eye contact with someone on the tube, you look away. And I think that's something that ideally, hopefully we can all kind of learn. And I think now that I feel like we're in a new phase and a new era where apps like Insight Timer, things like meditation, mindfulness, community are becoming more important. I've been hearing a lot about this more and more over time. And I basically, I'll kind of get onto the story of how I landed on this being my thing that I was going to do on Insight Timer. Shortly, I'm just catching up on all the comments. Sorry, guys. Thank you for being so vocal on the chat. Sorry for being a little bit slow catching up. And yeah, Cat Blue, one of the things that you said, so many reasons that we don't know, judgments of ourselves or of them is hurtful energy. And sometimes, and that's not saying, there will be times where sometimes people might like choose to not reply to us, or it might be intentional, but I think that's like often the rarity. Chantel, you said I fell out with my stepdad because when he moved out, he didn't contact me at all. I texted several times asking him to come to a barbecue, but he didn't reply. I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't know whether you had any kind of resolution on that or managed to find out why he didn't reply or why he didn't come, but I hope that he's doing okay, and I hope you are as well. And Cat Blue, thank you for sharing. And like, well done on setting up your business again, and focusing on schoolwork amidst the tech and eyesight issues. And Tashana has mentioned, I'm believing in myself more and more, even when it's uncomfortable. And I think that's a really lovely thing. I think connecting with others, we also want to be connecting with ourselves as well. Oh, Elias, I presume you're talking about your piggies called Vox and Burger. And Catherine, thank you. It's great to see you here as well. Yeah, before COVID, people used to hug more often. Do you know what? I'm a hugger. So when I meet new people, provided I also get a good vibe from them, I will usually like hug when I say hi. And the one thing that slows down, Peter Brook says, the one thing that slows down the connections is energy draining, regardless of the desire to, with health issues. I completely understand that, because I actually was quite unwell for a couple of months earlier this year, and I spent a lot of time by myself at home, which I'd never done that for like months before. And it was an interesting time, because I realized that actually one of the things it taught me is to connect with myself more, and kind of rely a lot less on external connection. But it also taught me that I can fulfill my own needs and kind of be there for myself in a lot of ways that I would have relied on other people previously. And I think kind of each of us reaches that conclusion when we're ready to. Hi, Michelle. Oh, Cat Blue, you've mentioned 0 local friends or family, so 0 hugs this year. Hopefully, you can make some more friends and family in your community, your kind of not family but friends in your local community, and find connection and hugs with people around you or closer to you, or I hope you get to see your kind of other friends and family soon. And Lucy, lovely comment. I agree with that idea that the majority of people do actually like to connect. I think it's so true. I think sometimes people will be caught off guard by like a stranger speaking to them. And I don't know if Elias has already gone, but good night, Elias. So Lucy, yeah, I think sorry, I think I just touched the mic. I don't know if that sounds awful for you guys. Um, the yes, I think one of the things is that people might be caught off guard. You know, when you accidentally make eye contact with someone, I even do it. I kind of flinch, or I'm like, oh no, what did I just do? Um, Even though I'm quite a friendly, outgoing person. Um, so yeah, I think you might get mixed reactions if you put yourself out there and try, but overall, you'll get more comfortable, and so will other people, hopefully. And you know, it kind of gives them. I said this in one of my recorded tracks. Is like if you say hi to someone or connect with someone, it might inspire them to do the same going forward, or you know, sort of have the hopefully domino effect. Chantal, just catching up on your comments. I'm sorry to hear that. I know that can be difficult. And I think one of the other things around sort of connections and particularly relationships, and I know family is always complicated, um, the I think expectations is a really important one. I have a kind of challenging relationship with my dad. And I'm very close to my mum and my sister. And so I'll see my dad when I go to their house. But it is, you know, it is difficult. Family can be very complicated, and I think from my experience, what I found is where it's kind of balancing like a sense of sort of obligation and duty with protecting my energy and like doing what feels good to me and authentic to me. And I think and just to your point, one of the kind of problems I've had in the past with my dad is where I felt like I've made an effort and then I haven't got the same energy back, or this say I haven't kind of had the outcomes that I've expected from that. And I kind of sometimes say, okay, I'm gonna not try again, etc. But quite often I do. It's yeah, because it's kind of one of those things where I think I still feel sometimes like it is worth me kind of putting myself out there, or um making the effort, I guess. And it even if and sometimes I try and do it without expectations, but really like I do have expectations regardless. Yeah, Monica, that exactly that. Like you say, one day they'll be gone. And it is. I think this topic of reciprocity is an interesting one because on the one hand, um, obviously we kind of do need some level of reciprocity, or you can't have a one-sided conversation or one-sided connection. But I think in terms of expectation, it's sort of letting go of. For me, one of the challenging things to learn is like learning that no one else is going to respond in the way that I would, or behave exactly the way that I would want them to, or that I would. So in relationships, for example, this is something that I've massively had to learn. Like another person won't necessarily speak to me the way that I would speak to them, or the way that I'd want to be spoken to, like word for word or exactly. And I think that's more of like an anxious attachment thing where you have kind of higher expectations, or you expect or you kind of need more sort of like validation or affection or whatever. But I think in general, sort of having that understanding that just because a friend or a connection of mine doesn't like respond the way that I thought they would, or maybe they didn't reply or something, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't care or they don't value the connection. They just might have a different way of showing it. Um, So I'm just gonna do a little hit pause for a moment and ask if anybody has any questions about anything that we've kind of covered so far, or anything that they'd like to share around sort of putting yourself out there or building connection or community. And one of the other things that I kind of wanted to get a feel for is how many of you kind of do feel that you have a sense of community around you, and you feel like I'm not just talking about friends or family, but I mean like you feel like you have a community or a tribe that you feel part of. Peterbrook, is that you've got over 100 questions, which feel free to share if you do. Maybe not all 100. And I can't believe we've got over 100 people. Yeah, there are. I just noticed that as well. So, Cat Blues just said, I've noticed our expectations are so limited compared to the unlimited possibilities in this existence. So the best expectations are no expectations, which equalizes with equanimity. So I very much struggle with this. And I think we all do. It's because as kind of human beings, we do have needs, we have like desires and thoughts and feelings, and so and this is something that I think my mum might be on this live. I'm not sure, but she always says to me, oh, you need to like manage your expectations or not have expectations when you're in whatever situation. And it is much easier said than done. And I think, obviously for me, hopefully practicing like mindfulness more and meditating will free me of that. But it is hard to not have expectations. And I think especially there'll be certain situations in your life where you will have more expectations than others. So things that matter to you or that you're emotionally invested in, or kind of, have more of where the stakes feel higher, it's harder to kind of be detached from. So I'm just going to catch up on a couple of messages. Z, very timely chat. Thank you as well for being here. If anyone has any specific like situations or scenarios around kind of friendships, connections, relationships that they want to kind of share or have like any feedback on, please do share. Angel, that's lovely to hear that your young adult daughters and you are a team. It sounds like myself, my mum, and my sister were also very close. Monica, yes, I have a big community. I'm assuming that's a typo for family, maybe. No family in my city, but I have very reliable friends. I'm very grateful. And I think that's important. I think you really get back what you put in. So I've got friends that live in my development where, they'll help me with my guinea pigs and I'll help them with their pets, etc. So Cat Blue, meditation, sitting in stillness. Yeah. I definitely need to get better at meditating despite being on Insight Timer for like more than 5 years. 112 people here. By the way, for those of you who've just joined, thank you so much for joining. This is my first ever live. So I'm really grateful and really excited to have all of you here, and I'm hoping to do a weekly session going forward. So Z, you've just hit on a really, really, really interesting point. And I think many of us on here will have felt this at one time or another. So Z's just shared, I'm very giving, so I feel very disappointed when it's not matched or reciprocated, especially with my family. And I went through this with my family for years. I used to make so much effort for Christmas, like Christmas dinner. And what I realized over the years that genuinely, whether I made like 10% or 200% effort, made very little difference to them. But it would be me putting the pressure on myself and me wanting everything to be perfect. And over the years, I relaxed and let go. And it means that all of us have a much nicer time because I'm not, on overdrive and drained and stressed. And then I'm also not upset when I don't feel that they appreciate it enough. So I think that's a really interesting point. But something, and I think it is difficult. So when, particularly with being kind of giving and warm and open, which I think many of us on here are, and we have that kind of light energy, I think balancing that with our boundaries and kind of giving and also giving to ourselves and protecting our energy and also being open to receiving. Because partly, I think one of the things that I learned in my experience in my past is if I would give a lot or do a lot, then I wouldn't leave room for the other person or other people to give. And also, they wouldn't feel like they had to, because ultimately, if I'd been giving for a really long time without allowing any space to receive, there wouldn't be, I would have created a pattern and a dynamic whereby I'm the giver, that's the way things flow. I'm just drinking a mint tea, if anyone's curious. So one of the around that giving and receiving dynamic, there's a really interesting book from a while ago, and this applies to relationships, but I think it applies to like all kinds of relationships and connections. It's called the passion trap or the passion paradox. It was kind of named and then the name changed. So what they talk about in this book, which is like slightly controversial, but I really like this as an analogy, and I think it works, and it's a really important thing that I reflect on a lot in a lot of situations. Is they talk about any relationship as being like a seesaw. Now, usually in any relationship, what the book kind of theorizes is that generally speaking, at any given point, there'll be one person who is a little bit more invested or a little bit more kind of giving or does more or makes more effort, and the other person is a little bit less, even if it's slightly. What happens is the giver gives and gives and gives, and the person who they refer to this, and this is terminology from the book, as the one up and the one down. Now, the one down is the person that's more invested and therefore more kind of, at the hands of the one up. So if you're the giver, or the one down as they call it, you give, and essentially the scales, the balance tips more and more and more. The more you give, the less the other person has to do, the less they kind of respect or value you, because you're not requiring anything of them. But you, as the one down, and I have been the one down many times in many like relationships, friendships, etc., which is why this was interesting to me. And basically, the more you give, the more you kind of get taken for granted, and the more that basically, and it's not always the case, but it's like it tips more and more and more, because as the kind of giver, you feel that at some point in the past when I gave, they appreciated it, that I've got like respect and validation, etc. So then you give more, but the problem is the more that you give, the less space there is for the other person to give. And when it's imbalanced, then the one down feels like, oh, if I do more, then I will get the payout, they'll make an effort. So you give and give and give, and it tips more and more like this. The book's called The Passion Paradox or The Passion Trap, and feel free to message me directly and I can send you, because there's a couple of other books with that name, but this is like a really old book that I read like many, many years ago, but I think it's probably like 20 or 30 years old at least, that book. And some of the ideas in it are a bit archaic, but it's really interesting. And so ultimately what happens, it creates this imbalance, and that's where you as the one down then feel like resentful, taken for granted, but also the one up doesn't like respect you. And in a relationship dynamic, this is what the book mainly talks about. It means that this person here feels like taken for granted, resentful, upset. This person here, who's the one up, feels like they're kind of annoyed, and they don't respect their partner, and essentially like both people aren't happy. So that's why, if you know that you have a propensity to being like the one up or the one down, it's being aware of that and slightly making sure that you're compensating a little bit so it stays a bit more even. So if you're a massive giver, maybe sometimes give to yourself or hold back a little bit, where you start to feel, like Z said, that you're giving a lot and not getting anything back, and it doesn't make you feel good. I think this has kind of come up a lot before on other sessions around, doing things that feel authentic to you and filling your cup first. And that's not kind of a new concept or idea. So it's just kind of balancing that, because there isn't, with all of this stuff, like we're all figuring things out, right? Like me as a teacher, this is my first live, and we're all learning. So yeah. And Z, if you feel free to message me, because there's a lot about the kind of anxious and avoidant stuff that I would love to discuss with you, and maybe I'll do a session on that if anyone's interested. Um, so I mentioned this earlier, but I've definitely I'm on the anxious attachment side of things. So I've like learned, read, listened to a lot of things around that. I'm gonna catch up on all of the comments. Um, So yeah, Charmaine, the community on here is amazing, and like this this is a great example of it. Like many of you are here because you know me from being kind of on chats on other lives. So thank you for everyone for showing up, and also people I don't know yet and haven't met. Lovely to connect with you. Um, so yeah, Z, with friends you're more easygoing, but as you've prioritized your family so much and not got the same back when needed, it's left me questioning my priorities and boundaries. And that's exactly it. So this is another kind of analogy that someone told me is this was about kind of any sort of relationships that you invest a lot in. Basically, if you keep giving and giving and giving without getting anything back, and you don't ever set a boundary, and it doesn't feel good to you, but you keep going, it's essentially a phenomenon called like sunk costs, I believe, and it's the same thing that applies when a gambler is at the slot machine and they keep putting in the coins and they're like, if I play a little bit longer, I'll get the payoff. I will, finally let me just put in like just a few more days, a few more coins. Eventually, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win big. I'm gonna get everything that I've invested. I'm gonna get it back. And quite often that doesn't happen, right? And the same thing applies. So I think it's about, and I think also another thing that I listened to today said that this was just like a YouTube thing, and the person said that if we kind of show other people how to treat us, right? So I think if you've been giving a lot to other people and you've been struggling as a result of that, it's worth looking at also what you're giving to yourself and how you can fill your own cup and kind of show your family or the other people you're talking about how to treat you. And Z, you've said, now I value those who value me. Like, that is a lovely thing. I think it's also important where possible, like, to also value, you know, those that might not give you what you need or what you expect from them, as long as it's not hurting you or it's not like at a cost to you. So with your family, for example, I think you can value them, but also set boundaries and, not overextend yourself. I think that's the lesson I had with the Christmas example that I gave, is that, I could still make an effort and like do nice things for them, but not to a point where I would then feel resentful or like I did too much and I'm not being appreciated. Okay. So let me just catch up on other comments. Um, so yeah, Monica, you mentioned you give without expecting anything in return. It makes things so much better. I think that's something a lot of us are probably working on. Um, yeah, the anxious and avoidant dance. And yeah, Teresa, you've made a really interesting point where you said you feel comfortable with overgivers. And I think the key phrase there is overgivers, because there's already in that sentiment or that phrase, there's an imbalance, right? It's not like with givers, it's with the overgivers. And I think sometimes people that quite often overgive, and I've done the same in the past myself, it comes from kind of people pleasing or trying to prove something or not feeling good enough. And I think if you're somebody that is quite kind of authentic and And yeah, Cat Blue, overgiving can cause others to feel like they're not capable without the giving. I think yeah, that's also true. And I think it's exactly, especially, where we talked about that kind of imbalance of um kind of power and the Oh, you can't hear me? Oh no. Hang on. Oh, is my sound back? Is it working? Okay, great. I don't know what happened there. Thank you for flagging. I don't know how much you lost. How much did you guys... Oh, okay. Let me go back to that. What was the last thing you heard me say, Teresa? Was it the whole answer? It's wireless, so I don't think I leaned on the wire, but maybe I blocked the Bluetooth. Yeah, so Teresa, one of the things that I said, and I don't know if you caught this, was, are you comfortable with the with being uncomfortable with overgivers or people who give, and also, is it overgivers that you're uncomfortable with, or just givers in general? But yeah, I guess like, yeah, the authenticity thing. Okay, so what I was saying was that if you're kind of in your authentic energy, and usually people who are overgiving are, when I've been an overgiver in the past, I've been trying to like people please, or trying to, I've not felt good enough. Without, I felt like if I don't make all this effort or don't do all this thing, then I'm not like worthy enough. So I think, when you're not coming from Hi Blossom Violet, lovely to have you here. I mentioned you earlier, and I was telling everyone to go follow you for like lovely piano music. Guys, there's so many great teachers who I absolutely adore who are on this session. So please, teachers, give yourself a little shout out on the chat, and guys, definitely follow them. There's Catherine Maramati as well, and Melanie. Right. So yeah, just to go back to that comment, I might actually be asleep already based on the time difference when you do your sleep meditation, Catherine. So I was just saying that I think it's important to kind of see, where the kind of giving and receiving thing, whatever your comfort level is. So Teresa, you were saying that you're not super comfortable with people who are overgivers. It might be worth just thinking about whether you want to get more comfortable with receiving, or if that's not like the right authentic thing for you. And it might be that the feeling of, that you then need to reciprocate is the thing that makes you uncomfortable. I'm just trying to go back. The chat only lets me scroll up to a certain point, so I can't go too much further. The last thing I can see is the muted bit and where I lost sound. So let me see if it will let me go further up. No, I can't go further up, unfortunately. So I've lost any comments before that. Oh, Kelly, I don't know if you've already left, but I hope you feel better. Okay, so you guys can all hear me. Brilliant. Yeah, so overgiving is a conditioned reaction from earlier in life, often in early childhood. Absolutely. And I think sometimes it also can just happen within certain dynamics as well. Like you can fall into patterns even later in life that you didn't have when you were younger. An angel said, I had a friend tell me that it's very comforting to her that she knows I will say no if I mean no. Changed my whole view on saying no versus overgiving. That's really interesting. So that's something that I personally struggle with, is I'm somebody that very much is of the mindset of if you don't ask, you don't get. And so I'm quite comfortable asking for my needs, or things that I kind of want. And it's exactly one of the I'm also reading the comments while I'm trying to talk, which I shouldn't do both at the same time. But I think it's quite interesting where, for me, sometimes I need a hard no for me to not be persistent and like follow up or ask again sometimes. And because sometimes people can be vague, right? And I'm very direct. Like if I don't want to do something, I'll say no. I won't say, oh, maybe. But you do get people sometimes that do say maybe, or like, let's see. So yeah, I think it's worth thinking about kind of communication as well, and how that relates to kind of connection and community, because quite often we'll like what we say and what we mean are different things, and obviously for different people as well, what we say and what we mean and what they think we mean, there can be gaps between that. I'm just gonna catch up on the chat. So Z said, hang on. So Z said, yeah, when overgivers are love bombers. I think overgivers can sometimes be love bombers, obviously, but I think sometimes overgivers can be people also who there's a lot of different reasons that people can overgive, right? Or be kind of people pleasing or whatever. It's not necessarily always love bombing. And sometimes it is learnt behaviour. So in certain cultures, for example, like I'm of an Indian background, I know that a few people on here are as well. And even in certain kind of other Eastern cultures, there is a tendency of you're always supposed to like there's like hospitality is a really big thing. Like if someone comes to your house, like you make sure they're like fed and watered, and like they've had like all the things that they could possibly want before they walk out of your house. And there's kind of certain cultures and certain habits and patterns that we have around like how we show up, how we're supposed to engage with people, how we're supposed to like host people, etc. And certain cultures and certain parts of that are geared towards what would be called overgiving in other societies. My voice just did a weird thing there. We've talked about that exactly. I have been in the past an overgiver, and I feel like I've kind of gone the other way, where now I'm really like boundaried and really cautious about not overgiving. Has anybody got any questions? Oh, Blossom, thank you for flagging. There's 140 people here now, which is amazing. Has anybody got any specific questions around building community or building authentic, meaningful connections in your own lives, or anything that you've kind of struggled with, or anything you feel is holding you back in that space, or any fears you have around like putting yourself out there or connecting with new people or with those that you might have lost touch with? I'm just catching up on the messages as well. Evie, it's and I hope, am I pronouncing that right? Is it Evie or Evie? I think that's come up before on another live as well. But good night, and it's lovely to have you here. Okay, so Z's got a question. How can we transition into starting to integrate back into society after lockdown and being alone for several years? So I think that's a really interesting one, and I think I'd love to kind of understand more within that what you have struggled with since lockdown. So do you have any specific things that you find challenging, or that you are avoiding since lockdown, or haven't done, or have missed, or kind of, anything specific that you want help or advice around? So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what comes to mind for me organically, but if you can share any specifics, and other people, please feel free to like chime in as well. So I was speaking to somebody recently who said that it was a therapist, and he was saying that he has a lot of clients who since lockdown now avoid doing things or stay at home more, and go out less, and I think we got into a habit of doing that obviously over lockdown, and it got a lot more comfortable to kind of spend time inside. We got more used to it. And one of the things that he said is like, just setting yourself little small goals to do things each day, and making sure that you get outside or are going to places where you are going to engage with people. So I think, a good example of that is like going to a local library, or a gym or pool or whatever, anything that's near you where you're going to see people and say hi to people. And I have a gym and a pool that I go to near where I live, and some days I really, really don't feel like going, and sometimes I'll give myself a break and I won't go. More than I would like to, actually, I do that. But when I go, I always come away feeling better. Like, even if I only go there for 10 minutes, I've had a 10-minute walk each way, and then I've also said hi to at least a couple of people, even if it's just the girls on reception. And I think that makes a really big difference. Another thing that I find as well is, like, I mentioned this earlier, but like if you've got any local libraries or local community centres, I think, so I'm like 32, and I think my demographic typically doesn't go to the local library. And it's such a shame, because there's pristine, brand new copies of anything that I'd like to read, because of the fact that no one my age really goes to the library. And I think they can be such lovely spaces and community hubs. But usually they're, you kind of assume, at least in the UK or in London, that they're for like a particular type of person or families, or, people who are like looking for a job, etc. Whereas they're really lovely spaces where you will kind of connect with people and say hi, and sort of you can spend a lot of time there without necessarily having to like buy or do anything, which you can't really do in like a bar or a restaurant. So I think that's quite a lovely, important thing, and finding spaces like that which feel like authentic and meaningful to you. And I think a good way of looking at that is like on Insight Timer, and we can kind of click on the lives and be part of a community and not kind of feel alone. And for me, when I when I was like living alone initially after a breakup, that was really helpful. And even now, when I've got like, let's say I've had like people staying for a couple of days, when they then leave, I'm like, wow, it's really quiet, let me like go on Insight Timer. And I go on Insight Timer most nights anyway, most of you know. But it's like finding the equivalent of those live sessions but in real life. So I think there's like apps for that. There's like Facebook groups and things. And also, one thing that I'd say, if you feel brave enough to do this, setting up those groups or like a games night or things like that yourself as well. And yeah, Lucy, libraries are really underused. There's a really beautiful essay from the writer Neil Gaiman about why libraries are important, and I really recommend anyone to like read that. It's really, really lovely. So let me just catch up on all the messages. So Cat Blue, seems like many more people are doing things online like they started to do during COVID, less things in person. Even my family at a distance are giving shorter answers online or just hearts. Yeah, so I think, and this is actually the thing that you've just said. I think one of the things that I've also noticed is like people barely speak on the phone anymore. And there's very few people who will be comfortable with phone calls over text, mostly in my like generation. Most of my close friends and the people that I'm close to are similar to me. And the problem is I'm not a concise person, as you guys can probably tell. It's been an hour and 6 minutes and I haven't run out of things to talk about. So I think basically that's part of the problem as well, is, you know, texting is by nature shorter. It's a bit less authentic because you can kind of pause and you don't respond organically always. And so Z, one great thing that you could do is like phone calls as a way of transitioning into doing more in-person things if you need that stepping stone. Let me catch up on this. And yeah, just I think people are kind of, you know, getting like shorter attention spans, and therefore like people don't communicate as much as they used to. So, and Cat Blue, I'd be interested to know, where you mentioned like your family are, you know, saying like less stuff online and more kind of hearts and stuff. How do you respond to that? Do you still continue to like share and say as much as you do, or do you sometimes find yourself like mirroring them? And do you ever kind of like address it or mention anything? So Cat Blue's also suggested, you know, smile more, look up instead of down, joining free classes, community art and music. So Joanne said, I'm similar, but mine's because of surgery, and over the last 2 years my socialisation has diminished heaps. I've recently started going to an art group, which has been fabulous. Yeah, that's great. And I think like trying new things is always a good thing, because you might not have ever considered going to an art group or doing like a workout class or whatever. And I would suggest, if you feel comfortable, it's worth just seeing what's in your local area and giving it a try, because you never have to go back if you don't want to. Or you can even say to yourself, I'm going to go to this place, or I'm going to do this thing for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and if I don't like it, I'm going to leave. And the odds are you'll probably stay, even if you never go back again. You'll probably stay and have a new experience. So, Z, you mentioned your friends fell away over the last few years. Yeah, I think a lot of people have said this to me, which is one of the reasons that inspired me to kind of like do this session, is that a lot of people have mentioned they're struggling with maintaining friendships, or they've lost contact with people, or, you know, they're struggling to have as much kind of connection. So Lucy has suggested a lovely thing, which is going to coffee shop and speaking to people as an easy way to build community. Yeah. And you can also practice, like, just when you go for a meal or you go for a coffee generally, if this isn't something that you're comfortable with or don't do often, is, you know, speaking to your waiter a bit more, asking about them a little bit more and things like that, and having a kind of practice conversation of speaking to people you don't know. And for those of you who are already well versed and talk to anyone, you can kind of challenge yourself to level up and kind of ask more interesting questions to people. And you know, like, can I ask or connect with this person in a deeper way than what I've been doing previously with like small talk or whatever. I can't believe there's 156 people here. I'm honestly so grateful. I honestly thought my first live would have like 20 people, and they'd all be people that I knew from other lives. Thank you for being here, everybody. So Z said, I'm very chatty too, so I miss the human connection. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, even if you're used to being kind of isolated or on your own, and you have built the habit of not really being around people, at your core, you probably will struggle a little bit with that. Or, you know, even if it doesn't feel like, oh, I need human connection, if there's like elements of not feeling 100%, it's like, or, you know, maybe you feel a bit like down or not 100%, it quite often would be because we're social creatures and we do require social and emotional kind of connection with other beings. And like animals obviously help as well. So Liz said, I have two people, one 50 and the other 163, refuse to talk on the phone. Only text or email. That's not going to work for me. Yeah, so that's so true. I think this is the thing, is like people will sort of stick to email or text or whatever because they can, and that's fine for people that they want to do that with. But I think if like speaking on the phone is important to you, or I mean, I guess if depending on if you're seeing them in person as well and you're having that time and then your needs are met, great. But yeah, I prefer phone to text because or like voice notes. But I just think text is usually, you know, back in the MSN Messenger days, we used to just type endlessly, and I don't know whether you guys kind of remember that, but BlackBerry as well is another one where, you know, there's endless like messaging. And I think we're going back now to like needing more connection and more conversation. I think we have a lot more to say as well. The world's a really interesting place. Yeah, walking groups Lucy suggested, those are great. And also with any of these things, like if you feel comfortable doing so, like set one up in your area and then you're the main talking point because you've brought all these people together. Oh, Peterborough, you're getting more into video calls. Yeah, they can be really great. Like I use video calls a lot to connect with friends and family that live abroad. And yeah, like Z, you've just made a really important point. I was going to do a whole session on this, but volunteering is incredible. And like the one thing about volunteering that I really found beneficial is like it gets me out of my own head, and whatever I'm worrying about or overthinking about, I'm not, you know, I'm in a different headspace and I'm present. So anything that makes you feel present and connected with people is really great. Blossom Violet, you're so sweet. Thank you. Oh, good night, Inge. And Liz, yeah, people relate to what you're saying. I want more reciprocity, but not codependency. So I think it's yeah, I think that's interesting, and I think you can also communicate that with people that where it's relevant, that you know, around kind of what you need and what your boundaries are. And the gym, and Monica said the gym and group classes is a great place to make friends. Absolutely. Yeah, I have so many people in my phone that are like Fiona from the pool, Miriam from yoga, and they're people that I've met like at my pool and gym. So yeah, Liz has mentioned you limit the phone to 20 to 30 minutes. That's something that I need to get better at because I can speak for a long time, and then what happens is I end up like not doing the things that I need to do. There's one of my friends in particular, we try to like do housework while we're on the phone so that we're being productive while we chat, but I don't speak to her super often, unfortunately, but like that's a really useful thing to do. Philippa said, must be something special about today. Just left Perfect Meredith Satsang and found this after Perfect Glowing Sunrise. Love from Dolphin Point. That's so sweet. Thank you for joining, Philippa. This is my first ever live, so it's lovely to see you here. Yeah, WhatsApp is great, as Liz said, but I personally, I don't know if anyone else finds this, and please add it in the chat if you do, but I find WhatsApp really overwhelming, and I always have like 40 unread threads because there's so many groups. Philippa just attended a community cook-up and had Nepali food. That sounds great. I hope you had some momos. They're my favourite. Momos are like dumplings in Nepalese cuisine. Cat Blue, you mentioned that you've learnt to communicate with people online and in person by combining some of their language. and some of your language to relate better with words and emojis. I think that's great, and I think it's really lovely how you're kind of reflecting on yourself and your kind of learning and communication styles and finding what works for you. And I think it's so lovely that you're able to kind of like show up authentically and own that. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, like everybody that's been saying this, Insight Timer is amazing. Z and Blossom Violet gave a little shout out to Insight Timer. And Mel, hi Mel, she said, hi friends, look like I missed your live. I slept in. I hope you had a good rest because sleep is important. So, and I will be doing, more lives, so don't worry. And Z mentioned that you go to yoga classes and you feel you're not in sync with the world around me. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that sense of disconnect after COVID. And I think it was quite a big thing that happened that actually we kind of all haven't like spoken about or addressed as much as we maybe like could or should. And Z's mentioned that you love nature and spending time on walks. I think that's like a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And one thing that I've started doing recently, and I tend to do it with a friend who lives near me who I met at a yoga class, funnily enough. I walk barefoot in the park. It's called earthing or grounding, and it's meant to be really great for releasing the charge of electronics and kind of all of that sort of stuff that we use. But you need to walk on like earth, like anything that's connected to the ground. So like beaches or water is good, or kind of grass or earth. And that's kind of a really lovely way to connect with nature. It's meant to have really good health and kind of wellness benefits. And if you can do that with a friend, even better. And what my friend Miriam and I find is that when we're doing it, we obviously just look down to make sure we're not stepping on anything like sharp or any sticks or anything. And so you're just kind of looking at the grass and it feels very like wholesome. Let me catch up on other messages. And yes, Monica, WhatsApp can be overwhelming. So what I do with people that I'm very close to and where, I want to be able to reply to them quickly, I'll say to them that please can we text or use iMessage. And Z, I'll be doing kind of more sessions going forward on how to meet your tribe and people who are like you. And because ultimately I think one of the things that it's really important to me is to kind of be around people that are going to help me grow and be the best version of myself. Oh, Peterbrook, you're going to do a nature walk after this? Yeah, sounds great. Anybody because it's like 10:17 p.m. here in London. So anyone that's in a time zone where it's, still bright and you've got the capacity to do a nature walk after this, like you should do, and you can think about Peterbrook and kind of do it virtually together. So Z mentioned people with kids and work carried on, but as I live alone, I stayed in my bubble. Yeah, and I had the same experience. I was lucky to live in a building with like other people, and I met a lot of my neighbours and we had kind of walks and stuff, but there was definitely times where I was quite lonely. And Liz, thank you for your lovely, very sweet message. I really appreciate that. And Monica, you do, and Z, you both do earthing, grounding, great, and Mel. Oh, cool. It's nice to have everybody from all over the world here. Yeah, I feel like I honestly, because I wasn't very well today, I wanted to go for a walk, and I did actually. My friend came over and we went to the park kind of behind where I live and ended up sitting on the grass but barefoot, which was nice. But I'm going to hopefully try and do more of a walk or a bit of exercise tomorrow. Oh, cool, you're in Spain, moved from California. I hope you're enjoying it in Spain. Where in Spain are you, Liz? And the last thing that I was going to share that I didn't kind of get round to, which I think is a nice... Terry, we're on the last 10 minutes, but I'm going to be doing more sessions. This was the first, so you've just missed the kind of practice run, really. But yeah, amazing that 172 of you showed up, and I really appreciate that. Mara, you're both in Barcelona? Cool. I love Barcelona. I've only been once, but I hope to come back. So hopefully I'll see you on more lives, and then if I'm ever coming to Barcelona, I'll drop you guys a line. And if anyone comes to London, feel free to drop me a message and say hello. Oh, Terry, I love New York. I spend a lot of time there. So I haven't got a trip planned for this year, but I usually go there at least once a year. I was there twice last year. So yeah, I hope to connect with kind of all of you more on these lives, and one day in person. Maybe we can have a big like community meetup somewhere. And yeah, I'd also love that if, you know, some of you want to create kind of groups and connect and sort of meet up in your cities or countries, like please do. So the thing I was going to share was around what led me, how I'm here now. So and by the way, for those of you who've stayed from the very beginning, I really appreciate you spending your time with me tonight, and it really means a lot to me, and you know, I really it gives me like a lot of positivity and great energy, and like makes me feel really positive about continuing to do this. And you know, if this is my first go and there's 176 of you, like just thank you from the bottom of my heart. And so yeah, basically what I was going to say was so I had realized that kind of, you know, what I'm good at and what I care about is kind of people and community and connection, and that's what matters to me. I've known that for quite a while. And then I basically kind of realized, I knew for a while also, I know I love Insight Timer, and I kind of have so much gratitude and respect and adoration for Insight Timer and every teacher on here, and I knew that one day I would like to do something on here. I didn't know what, you know, I don't read tarot. I have cards, but I can't really do it. I don't teach yoga, and you know, I was like, what am I gonna do if I do a thing? It'll probably be a talking related thing. I love food and I love cooking, and people always say to me that I should do like create a food YouTube channel or whatever. But I think I'm really passionate about food, and I don't want it to ever feel like kind of work. So I didn't do that. And I know there's a couple of teachers on here like Melanie that do, you know, mindful cooking and things like that. And so, you know, maybe one day I'll share a couple of recipes as part of my live if I'm excited about something that I've just cooked, but I don't think I'm going to be doing like a live cooking demo. I think the logistics of camera setup and like the way I cook is very kind of spontaneous, so I don't think it would work, but you never know, maybe we'll do a collaboration at some point, Melanie. But yeah, so there was lots of things that I could have done or could have thought about. By the way, in London right now it's 22:22 for anybody that loves angel numbers or is interested in that. I just happened to look at the time. But yeah, and Cat Blue, thank you, appreciate that. I have also, I'm gonna add more kind of information about me and stuff, but I've got like an about me and a Linktree link in my bio as well if anyone wants to kind of know more. And yeah, so what was I saying? I realized that I basically, and I don't know where, does anybody know, does this just cut off when we reach the kind of timestamp of an hour and a half, which is what I've scheduled, or will it keep running? I think it keeps running, but we have 180 people here now, amazing. So yes, so where was I? I was saying that I was trying to figure out what my like topic would be, what my thing would be if I did anything on Insight Timer, and it came to me suddenly that I wanted to talk about community and connection, and you know, and that happened in a few ways. It was kind of something that I just felt a calling towards that. And then another thing that I felt like called to was people struggling with kind of isolation and loneliness and struggling to maintain kind of friendships. And that's kind of what like I had that thought in my head of, okay, I want to do lives around this. And that was like on a Monday night, I think. And then on Tuesday, like the day after, I saw a video on LinkedIn, and it was a clip from the Diary of a CEO podcast, and it was Stephen Bartlett talking to Simon Sinek. And essentially the clip basically said stuff around and I'll try and see if I can put this clip in my Linktree because it was quite an interesting clip. But he said we kind of are always looking for the next like biohack, and we want to live longer and, you know, improve our health and this, that and the other, but we're like missing out on the most basic things, which is like connection and relationships and things. And he said that we're more isolated and lonely than ever, and that's by design. Like, we've designed our lives to be that way. And I think I cover that in my recorded tracks where I talk about, you know, We can order things at the press of a button. We've very much made our lives kind of convenience oriented, and we, like through like Netflix subscriptions and everything else, we spend a lot more time inside than we have to like go out to do things. We can have a world of entertainment at our fingertips. Even like this, for example, I think Insight Time is incredible, but I think obviously for some people it means that, you don't have to go out of your house to do a yoga class, which is brilliant, and, makes it a lot more accessible to a lot of people. It means that, we have kind of everything at the touch of a button, but it also means that maybe you lose that connection that you would have had, like speaking to the person next to you while you wait for the class to set up, etc. And so I knew that's what I wanted to do, and then I saw this video, and I just thought, and he even said in that, he was like, there isn't any like industry for this. There's industries on how to like improve your career and be successful, or like even for relationships, but there's nothing around like friendships or building connection. And that for me, like a day after I'd already thought this is what I want to do, it just felt like divine timing and a sign. And then a week later, my company announced redundancies affecting me and 2 other people. And I just thought, wow, like this is divine timing. I'd kind of felt like, oh, I'm gonna do Insight Timer, and I know I want to do Insight Timer, and I thought, oh, I want to do 1 live session a week. And I thought about doing that like just alongside my normal job. I didn't realize that I kind of would end up just doing this, and there's a few other things I'm working on as well, but like there's a few voluntary things I'm working on. But it was just so interesting because I felt no resistance to that, because I'd always known that with my kind of main job, that when I left there, I would want to do something more purpose and passion driven. And I knew that when I reached that point, it would be quite a big jump going from like a normal, sort of 9 to 5, like job, to doing my own thing, and, as ultimately like taking a leap of faith. And I don't think I would have been ready to do that myself had this redundancy thing not happened. And then also, it was so interesting that came up just as I was actually ready. So when I felt like I know what the next thing is, suddenly the universe is like, here you go. And that's like how it felt, and it felt like divine timing. And then another opportunity came up a few weeks later to like volunteer as part of this other thing that I'm not going to go into today. But yeah, it was exactly Blossom. And again, that opportunity, the volunteering thing, is going to be pretty hands-on over the coming months, and it will take a lot of time, and if I was working I wouldn't have necessarily been able to do that. So it's been really interesting the way that things have just aligned and come up at kind of those times. So yeah, and I think I am gonna wrap up now, because as much as I have absolutely loved connecting, hi Marcus, I'm not sure if you've just joined, but I think I'm probably going to be wrapping up now. But I will be doing a live at least once a week. I'm not entirely sure what day yet for next week, but I'm thinking possibly Thursday, although I will, and this seems to be a good time. There's a lot of 188 people. And yeah, so if you guys are able to, oh, Terry, that's so lovely to hear. Yeah, I will. So this is kind of the intro session, just talking about kind of, what I'm doing, why I'm here. And I had planned to do a lot more kind of prep and have more structure, to be honest, but I wasn't very well today. So I ended up, winging it a little bit more. But I'm going to repeat the quote that I led with at the beginning of the session, because I know we've had a lot more people join since I read that out at the beginning, and just as a reminder and a nice way to kind of close things off. But if anybody has like questions, obviously please follow me. Please feel free to like drop me a line if you have specific things that you'd like, suggestions of topics to cover. And if anyone is open to kind of supporting me, I've got, obviously there's the donation link here. And if you'd like to know more about me, there's like, I've got a Linktree link in my bio as well. But I'm gonna repeat this quote. One of the marvellous things about community is that it enables us to welcome and help people in a way we couldn't as individuals. And I'm going to pause there just to say that this conversation to me is a testament of that, like the way that you guys have been interacting with each other and the way we've kind of all bounced off each other has been really delightful. And honestly, this like warmed my heart so much and been like the best possible. This has been so much better than anything I could have imagined for my first live. So thank you, all of you, for being here and making it so special. And just so much love and light to all of you. And then the next part of the quote, when we pool our strength and share the work and responsibility, we can welcome many people, even those in deep distress, and perhaps help them find confidence and inner healing. So I hope that is a nice kind of note to end things on. And again, thank you so much for being here with me. 192 people. And the thing is, now that it's 10:30, I would have disappeared from the kind of home live page, so no one else is gonna join. Oh, Chandy's here. Chandy is one of my very good friends. Mel, unfortunately, I don't know whose quote that is. I did try to find it, but I was researching various quotes, and that was kind of the one that just resonated with me the most. So there are quite a few people, I think, like friends and family on here as well. So thank you, like everybody, for attending, whether you're from Insight Timer or from, elsewhere in my life. But has anybody got any kind of closing questions or remarks before we wrap up? Thank you so much, guys. Lots of love to all of you. And yeah, just as a little like reminder, whatever you can do to kind of create connection to yourself or to those around you and create community, like please do. And obviously I'll be sharing more kind of ideas and suggestions, and we'll have more conversations and discussions around this going forward. But also feel free to think about any specific questions you have or things you need help with. And we'll have like time for that in future sessions as well. And as I said, I'll also do a little like guinea pig and good vibe sessions for anyone that wants to just like bring a cup of tea and hang out with me and my piggies, and I'll tell you some like funny stories about them. There's drama in the guinea pig house. So yeah, Monkey doesn't get on with Pumpkin and Bear, and they don't get on with him, and I'll share more of that in the guinea pig specific session. But thank you for your time, guys, and have a really, really lovely rest of your day, whether it's night or daytime, and do something that feels like loving and wholesome to you before you end your day today. I'm going to be finishing my cup of mint tea, which is cold, but I quite often forget and let my tea go cold, and I don't really mind. And I'm going to write in my gratitude journal, which I've been doing for more than 10 years. And for anyone that kind of is interested in how that works, I just write down at least 3 things from my day that I'm grateful for. And this is definitely going to be the first, like the kind of first thing that comes to mind. So yeah, but thank you so much, everybody. And I really appreciate all of you. Thank you for supporting me by being here. Feel free to share my profile, and obviously when I'm doing future sessions, share that with your loved ones or people that you don't even really know who you think might benefit or be interested in community. And good night from me at 22:33 from London. Bye, guys.